Hi everyone, welcome to Hot House. I'm your host, Patrick Howard. Our guest today is author and illustrator Theo. Theo's fascinating novel, Welcome to Farpoint Rookie, creates a world that lies at the intersection of our everyday experience and the dark domain of forces that threaten to destroy the world. His characters are beautifully written and fun. Theo, welcome.
Hi, thanks Pat for having me, and thank you for such kind words to introduce my novel like that. I appreciate it.
It's my great pleasure. I really enjoyed reading Welcome to Farpoint Rookie. Your work kind of defies genre a little bit. There's a horror element, there's a sci-fi element, fantasy element, and then this sort of like dark world, other world element. Can you talk a little bit about how you define this novel and what your frame was for creating it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you kind of said that because a big influence for me in my writing is an author called Terry Pratchett, and he did Discworld. He was an English author, and he kind of took like the fantasy genre and then just injected so much humor into it and made it kind of like subverting its own kind of creation in a way. And I always loved that because I had always written like that until I discovered Terry Pratchett. I never found anybody who wrote like that as well. And I fell in love with him like almost immediately. And I knew that I wanted to kind of emulate that style. And so with Welcome to Farpoint Rookie, I was thinking about all these genres that I kind of write in and kind of read about. And I was trying to find a way to kind of just twist them all together and just see what came out. And I think the novel is the product of that, just experimentation with different genres.
Yeah. Well, it definitely it goes across a lot of definitions, and it's character driven. Agent Johnson is this world weary senior agent in this agency that basically is there to save the world, and he's craving retirement. And along comes this young recruit Critter Turnstile, who's a gifted agent. By the book till the very end. And then another a bunch of characters that come on board, but the characters are beautifully written. The plot it just pulls you right in. It's very compelling. So I read the thing like really quickly through. It was really a good read. So what are your thoughts about your character development? Because when I write, I usually start with characters first, and then wait for them to tell me the story.
No, and that's how it kind of goes for me. I wish I had like a cemented process, like one that I could just recall and just plug and play, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
unfortunately, I don't know, just the way it happens. I think the best way is to let it organically happen. And I think that is, best discovered through characters because that's how we're going to interact with the story as a whole. And I kind of do a weird thing where I try to get into the mindset of every character and kind of adding little quirks and making them a little bit more well-rounded is kind of my way of just, I don't know, exploring what they would say instead of trying to tell what I think they would say. And, they
Right.
kind of come to life that way. And I like that. I don't think I would change that kind of part of the process for me.
Hmm.
And yeah, like to speak too about like the whole genre fiction versus literary fiction. I had a professor who said, like, oh, some people kind of look at literary fiction as a higher form of genre fiction, but it is still a genre in its own sense. I believe that if you were to negate, I guess, all like literary fiction within the genre fiction, I don't think it would work too well. I think you still have to have, like you said, good characters. You still have to have good plot. You still have to hit on the things that make good literature. You just kind of have a little, I guess you could say, extra padding with fantastical and sci-fi and just whatever your imagination can kind of do. But I enjoy writing in it, and I enjoy writing in it in a way that it is character driven.
Hmm.
Because again, I do feel that's the way that we connect with the story.
Yeah. Well, your characters are very relatable. Um, I'll be very honest. I relate to Agent Johnson very well,
Yeah, yeah.
and I've known a lot of other people like Critter.
Yep.
One of my favorite characters is Dr. Lee, who this young scientist who instantly develops a heavy crush on Critter while she's trying to mend a hole in the universe. It's really hysterically funny, actually. It's really beautifully written.
I'm glad you picked up on that. That one was calculated. I I had Dr. Lee like in my head, and here's this brilliant scientist, and I'm trying to think like, well, like how can I make her more? And then just completely add the opposite, the inverse of being so scientifically focused and giving her this schoolgirl crush immediately, like love on sight. And it
Yeah,
was fun to play with that and also play with like how the character would deal with that, again, she's love struck over Critter at first sight, but the act of science and the idea of science is something that brings her back when she can help to fix that hole in the universe, like you
yeah.
brought up. Yeah, so it's super fun.
People love relatable characters. They love relatable events and stories. And you look at something like Dickens, or even going even back farther than that. People relate to stories that they can learn from, they can gain insight from their to their own lives. Most people are trying to solve a problem or address a challenge in their lives, and I think great literature, whether it's genre or whatever you want to call it, helps you do that. And I think that's why some things are very popular. They gain a lot of audience.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I can't agree with you enough. Yeah, I'm gonna plug your book for you, but your book, Neutral No Breaks, I mean, you have an amazing character spectrum and the dynamics and how to feather them all in together. I mean, that's tough to do, but that's what we like to see. We like to see how the
Yeah,
characters kind of interact, and that makes, I think,
yeah,
a story, like you
yeah,
said, enjoyable. Enjoyable. That's how
yeah.
we
Well,
get
I
it.
will share this with you. You mentioned that the writing process earlier, and I think I'd love to hear more about yours. But that book started off with a bunch of character sketches.
Mm.
The second book that I'm working on, called The Integrity Line, I've really done more to say, here's the beginning of the story, here's the middle of the story, here's the end of the story, here's the arc
Mm.
that I want the story to go through and the characters to go through. And I find that to be very, very helpful
Mm.
in kind of focusing the character development, the scene selection, that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel like, for my process, if I'm writing the novel, I do like to have an outline. I go through and make sure that there's certain points that, I want in there that I can hit and kind of slowly work out from that, allowing the characters to kind of create the interconnectivity between like pieces and parts. But yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like it's that having that outline, knowing where you want it to arc helps in kind of just filling it in. I would say for the short story, though, I'm not sure if you write short stories as well, but I actually feel that sometimes I don't need the outline as much. I feel like the characters and the way the kind of words are moving can kind of tell itself, and you kind of almost want to catch it. You don't really want to push it. You don't want to know where it goes. So it
Yeah.
kind of flip-flops a little bit, but most of the time I'd say I'd like to do an outline
Yeah, the short story is an interesting form.
per
They're
se.
very, very kind of narrow in their scope, but broad in their impact.
Yeah, I think a lot of people they like to think, oh, the short story must be easier because it's not as long as the novel, and you're like, no, it's the
Yeah,
same length, but much more compressed and shorter,
yeah,
emotionally, tonally. So,
yeah,
it's tough. It's tough to really kind of get that through when people
yeah,
see page count
yeah.
as yeah.
So in terms of relatability, here's this town, Farpoint, which feels like a normal town on the surface, and I love the one scene where a critter gets abducted by a cult while he's getting tacos at a taco stand. It's really hysterical. When you go into that sort of dark realm of forces that are trying to destroy the world, I don't know. I immediately thought, like, yeah, like that's going on right now too. You know, so there is. I think the theme. If I would write a theme for your book, it would be ordinary people doing extraordinary things in the setting of monumental threats and dark forces. So I don't know. We talked a little bit offline about how you see your work kind of meshing with our modern culture. Maybe you could share your thoughts about that.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. I think, in the book, it's the agency's job to save the world, but in real life, it's every single one of us. I think individuals helping individuals is how we get ahead. And I think if you're the best thing you can do by saving the world is just talk to your neighbor, maybe. I mean, that still saves the world for someone. And that's kind of what I was hitting at. And it's hard work, it is. It's not easy. It's hard to be compassionate. It's much easier to just kind of stay on the sidelines and say, well, someone else will do it. I know something is going to come and end the world eventually, but that seems like a problem for someone else. And in times current, I mean, I think that's especially, relatable now. I think we just have to, I don't know, remember that it takes us all to continue on. And, that's what I wanted that book to kind of.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's so true. And I'm always amazed at how one person can mess up so much or heal and create so much for everyone else.
No, I agree. I mean, I think it's right. It has an inverse, right? For every, I guess, good action, there's an equally bad action that an individual can take to create the same amount of
Yeah,
attention. And I think we forget that. I think we think the world is a lot bigger than it is, and it's
yeah,
not that big. It's about, I know, I mean, maybe 100 people that could be your world. 10 people could be your world, and so
sure.
one action out of that is actually significant.
Yeah, yeah. Well, having said all that, which I totally am on board with, your book talks about massive, colossal, worldwide uh, purveyors of doom. Now, those are maybe they're not harder to deal with. Maybe just using the same principle to deal with them.
Oh, definitely. I think there was, while I was writing it, like the outline at least, I kept going through the parts. There's four main parts or five main parts to it. And I was like, how can I like one up the previous one? How can I make it even more deadly? Because, I do think, we think the world in the book, it says that too, but, the world is, if you save the world, like that's it. That's the end of it. We don't have to worry about it. But there's always something
Today.
behind it. Yeah, today. Yes, exactly. And so, sometimes I feel like that, you put out a fire today and tomorrow there's a tornado and you're like, oh my
Right.
God. And you just have to keep dealing with it
Right.
and dealing with it. So
Right.
it's fun to think of it like that. But yeah, obviously, I kind of imagined it with a much more figurative, purveyor of doom sort of feel, bringing the kind of boom and doom. So that was fun to kind of imagine it in that way.
Yeah. Well, let me switch gears a little bit and talk about your art and your illustration work. Your book is beautifully illustrated. This is by you, right? And I love your black on yellow theme. But there's a whole bunch of illustrations in your other books and on your website. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think I was just too cheap to pay for a cover designer. Like, I actually when I started when I first started writing, I was like, you know what, I think I can do like visual art on the side to kind of, to make some money. Everyone knows writers are poor, but perhaps, hey, I could, draw and design and get paid for that. And so then I finally bought like a drawing pad, and I'm extremely limited in what I can do because I don't have the technical wherewithal or the artistic wherewithal to really figure it out. So I decided to work within my limitations, and I was like, okay, I could probably do silhouettes and basic line art. And then the black and yellow, I can't remember where I saw this black on yellow, but it caught my eyes, and I was like, you know what? That's a very striking kind of visual
Yeah.
combination. So I
Yeah.
said, let me work with that. And it kind of looks like a caution tape sign, kind of gives a little vibe of
Yeah.
maybe stay back. And so I started working with that, and it's fun to finish the book and then design the cover from the author's point of view, and it gives me a bit of closure to
Yeah.
be like, yes, and that's what brings it together, this kind of visual image. But yeah, and then I just kind of fell back in love with drawing for like the website and stuff, creating those little characters and little things that can go on the website and
Yeah.
create buzz, and it's fun to do. And then of course the video that you mentioned,
Yeah.
also was fun to do. But
Yeah, we'll
yeah,
put a
like I
link
said,
to that.
cool. Yeah, it just started because too cheap to pay for a cover designer and just work within the limitations. That's that's kind of what I was going for.
On my book, we worked with a company called the Book Designers. It's a very interesting process working with them. We basically gave them a synopsis of the book, what the main themes were, actually did some literal cut and paste of some ideas that we had, like from magazine illustrations and whatnot, like maybe it should be this or that, and got a whole bunch of ideas back, which were great. And, we went through all of those and we said, we like this, we don't like this about this one. And we're very pleased with the cover. The colors, the yellow and the red, and also the kind of the stark quality to it, which it's kind of it's almost mysterious. Like, what's that about?
Oh yeah, that's a fantastic cover. I will say I have it right in front of me. I mean, it really is. It's striking. It's perfect. I think it actually fits the summary of the book very
Yeah,
well. I
yeah,
mean, my
cool.
goodness, yeah, like it just gives you that that feeling. And then yeah, of course, the font's great too. Yeah, that it looks good. You get what you pay for. You know what I mean?
No, but
Definitely.
I love your stuff. Can you talk about the program you use for your illustrating, and then also what you used for your animation?
Yeah, definitely. So like I said, cheap. So I looked for the free software and I
Mhm.
found a program called Krita. That's Krita.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, and it's very nice. Once I think there's just a learning curve, with figuring out like the interface and then finding out how to get like different pressure on the brushes and to like, do different kind of like stabilizing lines so that it doesn't come out all squiggly because your hand's shaking.
Yeah,
And it was really that process probably took about a month of like goofing around just to figure out where the shortcuts were and how to actually even use it. And so once I kind of figured out and did a little bit of research of, oh, how many pixels per square inch should I have? How big should these things be? It started to get a bit easier. And then once I felt comfortable with it, I decided to, hey, maybe I can make like kind of a moving comic book type animation. And with that, I used a app or an application called Filmora. I think it's like Wondershare. It's very, very intuitive, and it just is a very easy like media maker with different kind of settings to or different kind of lines to drop like your still pictures in or your videos in and create it almost visually. And they have a whole bunch of preloaded effects that I just had to figure out. Okay, how can I work again within these limitations to create something that I feel like will be, a good representation in the final product. And that's what I did with that. And that took me a while though to figure out. It was a little difficult, but
yeah.
once I started going, I was like, okay, I can see how this works. And honestly, it was super fun to make that scene come to life because I love that scene. And I thought, oh man, this would be great, marketing or extra content for the book. And yeah, proud that it came out. My wife is a composer and sound designer for
Oh, cool.
video games.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I got that one. So she got to make the music and the sound effects, and I
Nice.
like it was pretty flat. Like when I was just doing it, I was like, yeah, that's all right. I guess it'll be cool. And then when I gave it to my wife and she put in the sound effects and music, I was like, okay, now it's popping. Okay, I like that. That is fun. So, but yeah, just fun to to have a collaborative process in
Oh,
our work too.
that's
As
great.
writers, we're very much solo artists, right? So it was fun.
Well, I happen to also be married to a very gifted person who helps me immensely in ways that I couldn't even begin to, to calculate. So it's great to have a collaborator that's also your partner.
Yeah, no, it is. And the support that you get from it,
Yeah.
they have to support you. They said I do. So, they're kind of stuck. They can't plead the fifth on this one.
Yeah.
Hard.
Yeah. Well,
But
it goes both ways, I'm sure.
oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, no, 100%. But yeah, it's great to have, another kind of tenant to lean upon and support each other. So
Yeah. And speaking of video games and other media, boy, I could see Welcome to Farpoint Rookie morphing into many different things. A graphic novel,
mhm.
a video game, animated feature, even a live action feature, provided that the CG budget was quite large, because there's
Yeah.
a lot of fantasy stuff there. But have you thought about what might be the next step for this particular work?
Definitely, and I think like I'm kind of lucky in the way that I create, or the way I guess I should say that the writing comes to me is often very visual. It's kind of how I process things, and so I'm very lucky that it translates well into different medias if that's what I wanted to do. I had this idea to not do a graphic novel because I don't think my drawing artistic skills are good enough to be able to do 100 pages of full illustrations. But I had this idea to do what I would call an illustrated novel. And I was thinking of like slipping in kind of comic book like panels in between the pages to kind of create more of an atmosphere. Sometimes maybe a full page, a full spread, maybe half the page, maybe just a little
Yeah.
triangle. And I was like, that would be really fun to do. And that's something that I've been kind of playing around with for this particular work. I think it'd be fun to revisit and do that. As for like the video game or, film adaptation, that would be, I mean, the opportunity came, that would be awesome. I'd
Yeah.
be just that someone offered. But yeah, I would have fun seeing it in a different medium and also have fun seeing what someone might kind of adapt it into.
Yeah. Now with AI, I mean, where was AI like 2 years ago? Like, what's that? Right. But now it's like everything's AI. But with that and with, being able to collaborate with people in Korea and India and England, like instantaneously, we're really at a, wonderful period in the development of art in general and specifically graphic art. So maybe there is an opportunity out there for collaboration, as long as you can be the creative supervisor and you get the credit that you deserve. Don't want to give that up.
No, yeah, of course, right. That's the thing. It's always hard to kind of let your baby go and
Yeah,
see someone else. But again, if the opportunity came up, like you said, I mean, there's plenty of opportunity. We live in the
yeah,
internet age where it's all just a connection away. So
yeah.
very exciting.
I think your website mentions, or in previous interviews mentioned Stephen King as an influence. He likes some of his movie adaptations and doesn't like other ones.
Yeah.
But
He's
like The Shining, I'm not sure he loves it, but that's a American icon in my
yeah,
opinion
classic film
of
at that.
film. Yeah.
Yeah. I also, what's funny is I took a film adaptations class.
Oh wow.
When I got out the military, I went back to get my degree, and I was like, hey, well, you know what? I want to take classes that sound interesting. And my final project was actually on Stephen King's The Lawnmower Man, which I mean, if you've seen the movie and you've read the short story, I mean, nothing like it at all. He actually sued them to get his name taken off it because he was like, this
Wow.
isn't even my story. And
Wow.
that one turned into a cult classic as a film. And the short story isn't bad. It's in his collection Night Shift, and I've read it a couple of times. But yeah, the contrasting kind of tones that it takes, it's wild, absolutely
Yeah,
wild.
yeah. That's fairly common, I think. But you give up the rights, and then film is a different medium. Some people love audiobooks.
Hmm.
Like listen to audiobooks. I find it always difficult to do that because I think the spoken word and the written word are different media. And if you try to just shoehorn the written word into the spoken word, there's a lot of things that are lost, a lot of things you have to do to make it sound true to the form. But it's a very different medium.
Oh yeah.
And film is way different. I mean,
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
yeah,
And actually, I don't know if you ever heard of a man named Marshall McLuhan, and
yeah,
yeah, understanding media, right? And hot and cold medias, and a medium, sorry, and book literature is a cold medium, as he would say, because it takes more engagement, more involvement, more
right, right.
imagination. I believe he said, cold mediums induce hallucinations, whereas hot mediums induce hypnotizing, whatever
The
the
hypnosis.
hypnosis. Yeah, hypnosis. There we go,
Yeah,
hypnosis.
that's
And
interesting.
Yeah, and so they're two different mediums. Very hard to like you said, shove this cold medium book idea into this hot medium where now all of a sudden, we can see everything, and you can use that to your advantage to create tone and to create story. But in
Yeah,
the written word, you got to produce it up in someone's
right.
heads, a little bit different. It definitely doesn't gel 100%, every time.
Yeah, the written word is actually an amazing phenomenon because it comes from your brain onto a piece of paper or a screen in these little squiggles,
Yeah.
right? And there's like 150 different languages out there, if not more, that the squiggles all look different. And then you're sitting there reading it silently in your own brain and you're generating pictures in your brain. It's,
Yep.
if you think about it, it's like, wow, maybe we are salvageable after all as a species. If we could do that,
It's
something
incredibly
is it
impressive.
is pretty incredible.
I know Alan Moore, who was a graphic novelist. He did Watchmen and
Yeah,
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. He said that he's a wizard, and when he's writing, he's just creating a spell that's like thousands of syllables long that then gets you to hallucinate what he wants you to see.
absolutely.
And I'm
It's
like,
really
hey,
quite a phenomenon.
very, very crazy that we've learned how to do that.
Yeah,
Impressive.
well, I think maybe, I mean, not to sound too sort of like nihilistic or kind of like a Luddite, but I think the less kids particularly are called upon to do that, there's something lost there. You read a book to train your brain to think a certain way and to develop these internal, as you call them, hallucinogenic or imaginative skills that are very important life skills and survival skills, and those are skills that have helped us become the species we are. So I think the more written word, that's why when people say the book is dead, or they were saying it 20, 30 years ago, like nobody reads anymore. Well, that's not true. First of all, the book industry is enormous.
Mhm.
There's like a million titles a year or something that are published.
Yeah, yeah, crazy.
So, high value, high value.
Oh yeah, and I think you said it well too when you have a generation now coming up that reading isn't I guess seen as important as it is to just get it from the screen. I think we see the effects of that now even, I think well if you're anything like Jeremy from your book, I assume you're kind of a big movie buff,
I
especially
am. I
golden age
am.
of cinema. And I think that those filmmakers are incredibly imaginative because they like filmmakers now are like, oh, I love this film. I love this film. That's what inspired me to make this film. However, back in the golden age of cinema, there was like, I love this story. I'd love to imagine this story visually on film. And you get much more
Yeah.
creative, much more organic kind of processes. Not to say that like film hasn't become its own art and that can be studied and
Sure.
replicated and obviously, built upon. But I do think some sort of process up here gets lost when we stop reading and we just view, we just
Yeah,
consume.
absolutely. Well, I wanted to ask you about your experience with the collaborative Pumpjack Press as a publisher. And we're both familiar with Kathleen McFall and Clark Hayes, two amazing people, great writers. But they've done kind of something really unique and ingenious, which is to create an author co-op model for publishing. Can you tell us about your experience with that?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, again, just Kathleen and Clark, like awesome. Thank you guys. I appreciate, everything you guys have done for me. It's been incredibly helpful. When I first started out writing and had my first novel published, I went with they're sort of a larger publisher, but not like a larger indie publisher. And they put out like, like maybe a title a month, maybe two titles every month if they wanted to. And I just felt that, it was almost like a whirlwind. You have this, it's your first novel published, you have like these like kind of ideas. You're like, oh my God, this is going to be great. Let me quit my day job. Let me tell my family what I really think about them. No, but, and so I was expecting to be, a little bit more, talked to at the very least and just washed over just like okay, yeah, your book's in, it's out, okay, let us know when you have the next one, goodbye. And I was like, that's it, oh my God, okay, guess this is publishing. And it was kind of like disheartening. And then I was like, I'm not really sure if I want to, if this is what publishing is, I'm not sure if I really want to publish then. And just kind of going through and we're still writing and still kind of thinking about it. And then I come upon this book called The Gates of Mars, and I read it and I go, oh wow, that was really well done. And I go,
Great
well,
book. Great
yeah,
book.
great book. And
Great
then it's like,
series.
yeah, I know. I just bought the second one. I didn't even know it was a series until I
Yeah.
talked to Kathleen. I was like, oh my God, okay, let's go
Yeah.
see what Crucial's up to next. And so I look at see who the publisher is, and I see Pumpjack Press, and I said, oh, well, let me look them up. What do you know? They have a little contact us if you want to do this. And I ended up talking to Kathleen, and she explained a little bit what their co-op model was. And it pretty much was just authors helping authors. Like that's what it was, like, hey, we've been here since like the late 90s publishing books. We know some ins and outs, we know some tricks and tips, and we are willing to show you. And that is, I mean, information like that is absolutely amazing. They're kind enough to share it and kind enough to take me in and kind of show me what publishing can be in a author cooperative kind of landscape. And yeah, it's been great. They've helped me get the book into different platforms. They've helped me with just marketing ideas. They've helped me with just, I mean, everything from typesetting to finalize PDFs and just making sure it like hits this way and that way. And yeah, it's been great. And I mean, just invaluable, honestly, for the amount of information that they've given me.
Yeah, that's amazing. And yeah, they are very, very generous with their expertise and which they've learned through trial and error.
Mhm.
And a lot of I think they're up to like a dozen titles at this point, plus other titles that they're publishing with other folks. So they've learned a lot by doing it. And they don't have to be generous with that knowledge, but they are. They're very generous. They're very collaborative and welcoming. And so I just can't say enough about it. Kathleen particularly helped me a lot with getting this book published, my book, Neutral No Breaks, published. And boy, you learn there's a lot to it, you know? There's a lot
Yeah,
to it.
there
I think,
really is, and it's like you said, it's kind of rare that they have this much information and they are sharing it. I feel like in this field, it's kind of gate kept a little bit what
a
works
little
and
bit. Yeah.
yeah, just a smidgen, but
Well, I think it actually, yeah. I mean, I think, not to be too critical, but just the reality is they talk about the big five publishing houses, and but those companies, those corporations are often owned by other larger corporations that kind of come under the umbrella of entertainment, and even those are held by even larger companies.
yeah,
And there's a lot of infrastructure, economic infrastructure behind all of those publishing houses. Their deals with Amazon, their deals with bookstores, with libraries, with nonprofits, all of the things that we never see or think about. That I mean, you can sometimes go into a bookstore and think like, why did this book ever end up on the shelf, right? But if it's marketable to somebody,
Mhm.
then it ends up there, right? Um, but that's not necessarily. I think quality might not be the first thing they think about. They think about marketability.
A hundred
Uh,
percent, yeah.
yeah,
What can they sell instead of, and like you
yeah,
said, that's why you can see books on the shelf that are like, I'm not sure how this got here, but someone took a chance on it. And it's like, okay.
yeah. I mean, we're not just talking about like the memoirs by famous people, like Michelle Obama is obviously going to be published, or even like the novels by Tom Hanks. I mean, of course they're going to publish those, right? But some things I think somebody takes ownership of those titles and says, "Yeah, I can make this work." And it's interesting. So agents have to convince publishers, and publishers have to convince distributors. So it's a whole pyramid of stuff that goes on. So this is why independent publishing is such a vital part of publishing. Uh, it's just another flavor of publishing. My hope is, and I think it's true now, that independent publishing or small publishing houses are just part of the landscape. They're just as legitimate, just as successful, just as quality driven as any other part of the industry,
Yeah, if not more quality driven,
if
because they
not
have
more.
to Yeah, they have to pick the winners, or they have to, really kind of focus on making sure that their product is good because it doesn't have the flair that, will get on the shelves where everyone will see it. It has to win by its own merit.
Right. And it doesn't have the instant like 50,000 copies like
There you
distributed
go.
to, to a thousand bookstores like overnight. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah. I
yeah.
mean, it's like, I forget who was saying it, but it was something like the visibility of what you see out there is, I mean, it's less than the tip of the iceberg, and I think it'd be great if we could all, admit on one subjective opinion and say, yes, the cream does rise to the top, but it's so subjective and people like different things and some people will
Yeah.
like that and not this, but they'll like that and not that. And so
Yeah.
it's just a whole, it's nice to see that there's at least this environment of the book market where you can kind of go and find what you like. And
Yes,
that
absolutely.
is something that I think is new now, before it was,
Yeah.
major publishers. So
Yeah. Well, I think it's just part of the overall democratization of the media,
mm,
which I think is a good thing. Even that some of that's being threatened by some of the financial models, in things like like YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and all these things that are supposed to be kind of the media that belongs to the people are becoming less and less that and just more ways to sell things, just like everything
yeah.
else.
And that's kind of sad, because you think of like the roots of like the real kind of public internet boom, and these
Yeah,
things like YouTube and these social media sites. It's very much user driven, user kind of
yeah,
run in the sense of like what's being seen. And now you have, oh, do you want to promote this post on Instagram or something like that? Pay money and I can put it up there, and then the algorithms get figured in and people start using it for campaigning. And so yeah, it is kind of when you think about it, it almost feels like it was inevitable just because of the way society has gone for the past couple thousand years. But
it's
at the
exactly
same,
right.
you wish there's still this wild, wild west to the WWW, and it slowly is. The blank corners of those maps are filling in quickly, and it's being filled in by people who know how to fill it in, and
Yeah,
giving the people that don't have as much, opportunity or say, even less say.
yeah, but I think while that's a little bit disheartening, I think it's evolutionary pressure on a bunch of other people that are going to continue to create the outlets that still work in the way that you described.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I think you can only apply pressure for so long until it starts escaping out one side. Like you can't. At some point, the TikTok is not going to be what the people want anymore. It's not cool, and we'll get the next thing, and then that will have its heyday of being free speech and
Right.
allowing people to speak of how they want. And then, of course, they'll swallow that too. But again, the jaws will close, and something will slip out, and we'll just keep going on for the next thousand
How true. How true.
years. Sorry, I'm a little pessimistic. No,
No,
but
no. I think it's a there's a touch of realism and optimism.
yeah, I think that's what I like to at least tell myself that I'm an optimistic realist. I don't want to be you don't want to be the pessimistic realist. If you're the pessimistic realist, no one's inviting you to parties. No one wants to talk to you at the
That's
bar.
funny.
But if you're the optimistic realist, the
There you go.
people they elect you president. I think. I
Yeah,
think
really.
that's.
Hey,
But
listen, I want to ask about your next book. I think you're working on another book right now.
I'm working currently on the sequel to Welcome to Far Point Rookie, which is going to again involve Johnson and Critter. And that one's going to take them into the Grand Recorded Archives, which is very briefly kind of mentioned in this book, which is just this library at the bottom of the agency. What's going on in there? I guess you guys will have to read it when I finish it.
Yes,
But
well, I think everything's going on in there, right? It sounds
uh,
like it's the Akashic record of everything and everyone, right?
well, you gotta,
I
you're
guess I'll have to read
gonna.
it.
I can't believe you got it though. I mean, you definitely just you took you took exactly what my synopsis is for pretty much. So that's fun. It's kind of like what we were talking about, just information. And once I finish that, I do have a collection of short stories in another novel that I wrote that I'd like to using Pumpjack Press's cooperative model, get out there, get refined, and put that down in front of people. So there's also that I want to do. And I had this like a couple months ago, I had this burst of like an idea or like an idea I already had, and I was able to just knock out like a 30-page outline. And I'm like, okay, I got to finish this novel so I can get to this novel while I'm still excited. And then I got
Yeah,
these short stories. So the list just, I feel like, keeps going and going. And
yeah,
it just feels like time is the biggest factor. Finding the time to write is,
yeah,
in the real world, not in the perfect publishing world where you get the advances and the multi-book contracts. So,
yeah.
we still have to work and we still have to go on with life. And
We still have to work and go on with life, and we still have to, make sure the roof isn't leaking and the water pipes aren't leaking. I read a great book by Elizabeth Gilbert called Big Magic, and it talks about the creative process. And she's convinced, or tries to convince you that a great book can be written by writing 2 hours a day.
yeah, no, I
And
I
so
would believe it. Yeah.
1 or 2 hours a day. So I think there's some wisdom in that.
Oh yeah.
But the thing is, the point is every day. And maybe she or somebody else said that when you go away from your characters for too long, they stop kind of relating to you and stop telling you their story. When you leave them for a few days, but certainly for a couple of weeks, if you leave them and come back, you have to kind of get back on board with them and refamiliarize yourself with who they are, what they're like, what they're doing. Whereas if you're visiting with them, I mean, visiting with these imaginary friends, every day they will become very generous with you to tell you their story.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, as long as you show up every day, I think Stephen King, back on him, says in his memoir, you can't get the little creative man in your head to work, but you need to let him know where you'll be showing up every day. So just
Yeah.
in case he decides to come down, he knows you're there. And I think that's true. I try to set every morning is my writing time. I try to block off some time so it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm gonna write, and that's gonna be, my
Yeah.
creative outlet for the day, and then you
Yeah.
take care of the other things. But
Do you have a
you know,
word quota?
I like to say like 1,000 to 2,000 words a day, which is a
That's a
lot.
lot.
It's a lot. It is. But I
Well, I'm
like to.
ashamed to tell you what mine is now.
Well, mine goes like this. I try to get like 1,000 to 2,000, and then I do my editing process the next day. And
Yeah.
so that 1,000 usually is like, okay, 60% of this is unusable. Like just delete it. But at least you got it out. So now we have like a bit of an outline
Yeah.
to kind of build upon and expand. But yeah, I mean, I try to make myself sit down and move at least a couple of pages. Like get a
Yeah.
couple of pages moving, whether it sticks or not, that's for tomorrow's problem.
Sure.
But as long as I can get those pages moving, I feel like I'm doing something.
Yeah, same here. I think if I can get 3 or 4 pages that I'm happy with every day, if you have if your book's 300 pages, that's in 3 months you have a book.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's awesome if you can really kind of be disciplined and
Yeah.
stick to that, keep that creative flow going, and hopefully no pipes break and you got to take a
Right.
couple of
Right.
days to fix it.
Well, Theo, it's been an absolute blast chatting with you. I love your ideas, and I'm so happy for your success, and I'm really impressed with your work, and appreciate you sharing your journey with us.
Awesome. Yeah. And thanks for having me. Thanks for chatting with me. It's always fun just to talk about the craft with someone who does it as well and does it well too. So I really do appreciate you guys having me. And yeah, hoping for the, best wishes for you and your successes as well too. I'll be promoting your book as much as you're promoting mine. So
Well, well, thank you for that. Yeah, I hope to be done with it this by the end of the summer. So,
awesome. Nice. You'll have to let me know then.
yeah, and you too. All right, thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Pat.